God, please!
The Flying Guillotines.
Hello warrior friends, I'm Huiying Hu, and this is your favorite Kung Fu movie channel. This video is dedicated to Brian Mills. Friend, thank you for your new donation. There is no better way to motivate myself to continue making this content. Let's go to the video.
I love the script, not only for the martial arts, but for its innovative plot and the depth of the characters. I am very confident in being able to make this film. If it is successful, I hope to introduce a new concept in action films.
The Flying Guillotine, 1975, is not only one of the greatest achievements of Hong Kong cinema, but also one of the greatest stunt films ever created. Fans remember it fondly both for its theatrical release and for its subsequent television broadcasts. Along with other films such as Chang Chai's The Boxer of Shantung, 1972, and his Shaolin film series, which explored other historical heroes of China, Ho Menghua's quasi-historical thriller became one of the colony's most influential films. It inspired numerous sequels and clones over the years. This video discusses the production of the Guillotine films, offering insight into the often chaotic situations that actors, directors and producers faced during the wild and turbulent golden age of Hong Kong action cinema. In January 1974, production began on The Bloodthirsty Gang, the English working title of one of the most famous and influential films in Hong Kong cinema, later known as The Flying Guillotine, 1975. The mythical weapon is said to have been created by skilled swordsmen from Western China, so fearsome that there are no records detailing its actual appearance. Upon its release, the weapon resonated deeply in both Asia and the international market, becoming an object of terrifying and popular curiosity that persists to this day. The weapon's origins lie in the reign of the cruel Emperor Yongzheng of the Qing dynasty, who ruled from 1722 to 1735. However, the historical accuracy of N.I. Kwong's script is as enigmatic as the weapon itself. It was precisely this unusual script that initially attracted director Ho to the project. As one of Hong Kong's most versatile filmmakers, this film represented a significant departure from Ho Menghua's previous works, such as the award-winning 1967 Susanna, the quartet's acclaimed musical fantasies, Journey to the West, and a series of fencing dramas. Having completed some modern dramas that were trending at the time, Ho returned to the period stage with The Flying Guillotine, also known in Chinese as The Blood Dripper.
I've made a new weapon. This can behead a man from a distance, and it gives no warning.
The Imperial Guard, and when you've got them, you'll teach them to be experts with this weapon. If any should prove disloyal, they and their families will die.
The casting of the main roles was quite simple. Chen Kuan Tai was enjoying a streak of success that began with The Boxer of Shantung, his first major role for the Shaw brothers. However, finding the female lead was more complicated. Ho needed the right actress and found her in Lu Wuqi, an attractive, no-nonsense star from Taiwan who had signed with the company in July 1970. Formerly a model and beauty pageant winner, AIT became one of Shaw's most popular actresses and has a minor role as a gift from the Emperor to one of the members of the Guillotine Squad. The story of the famous decapitator had already been brought to film at least twice before, once in a 1956 production and another in the early 1970s, Revenge of the Blind Swordsman, which showed a Chinese clone of the Japanese Satoichi in a fight to the death against the flying guillotine wielded by Chang Tao, a Taiwanese actor who signed with Shaw Brothers in February 1972. Ho Menghua wanted to move away from the fantastical approach of the previous films and opt for a more realistic one. Even this seemingly incredible weapon was treated as realistically as possible. When talking about the weapon, director Ho commented,
"At first, I believed that the guillotine was just a myth. However, According to historical documents, it really existed. In appearance, it resembled a hat.
With a title like The Flying Guillotine, one might expect a typical Shaw Brothers macabre production. Although the film features bloody violence, Ho Menghua wanted to minimize the cruelty, preferring to cut quickly or leave it to the imagination. Additionally, he wanted to focus more on characterization than fight scenes. One of the most notable facets of Ni Kuang's script is the variation of the characters and the realism of the film. There are no wuxia universe flying swordsmen or superhuman feats, everything is based on reality when portraying human nature. As director Ho mentioned, it was that, something new, he was looking for. Ho Menghua found filming the sequences involving the gun itself to be a challenging task. Only one flying guillotine used in the film was made of real, functional materials, probably the one that Chen Kuan Tai designs and shows to the emperor. Its construction is remarkable and certainly looks terrifying when revealed. However, filming the scenes of the gun in action was not the only difficulty, showing the characters throwing it at their targets presented another problem. For example, in the training scenes, when the characters launched the flying guillotines at the wooden men, dozens of takes were filmed until a satisfactory result was obtained on screen. It took more than 60 days to complete filming, and filming the special effects shots of the film's title head cutter, and a new ending, took even longer. At that time, cranes were not used for high-altitude shots, so bamboo towers were built. These structures sometimes had extensions operated manually by the team, functioning like a crane. For The Flying Guillotine, director Ho and cinematographer Cao Hui-chi devised methods to capture the complex shots of the guillotine flying through the air and impacting various objects. Although Ho initially considered bringing in a Japanese crew, he ultimately decided that he and his cinematographer would solve the problem themselves. Due to difficulties filming the gun and additional location shots, the film's production was extended by almost a year. The final script included details that had initially been discarded, cut or not filmed. Below, let's look at some plot points and sequences that were changed compared to what was ultimately shown on screen, according to an adaptation of the script published in Shaw's Southern Screen magazine. Initially, the murderers destroyed the decapitated corpses using an acidic and poisonous pill to leave no trace. However, this idea was scrapped, as it made no sense for the guillotine squad to go to the trouble of beheading the victims when they could simply infiltrate their homes and dissolve the bodies there. Additionally, this would have made Flying Guillotines a much less intriguing film. Tian Fu's, played by Wang Yu, outburst, in which he shouts, "I won't be the Emperor's assassin," originally occurred in the assassin meeting room under the palace, rather than going berserk during a mission. His speech, in which he accused everyone of being animals for killing in the name of the Emperor, was cut because Ma Teng, played by Chen Kuan Tai, makes a similar proclamation after Tian and his wife are killed. In the last quarter of the film, significant changes were made to the script. For example, the fate of boss Chen Kong, played by Ku Feng, and the ending of the film were altered. Basically, the last 30 minutes of the film have events rearranged or filmed differently. In the final version, the treacherous Su Xuankang, played by Frankie Wei Hung, who has spent the entire film betraying his brothers to gain the Emperor's favor, kills Chen Kong after framing him so he can lead the hit squad. However, in the original script, Su was loyal to Chen Kong throughout. In the sequence where Luo Peng, played by Lin Weitu, finds Ma's house, unaware that Su Xuankang has followed him, Su cuts off his head while trying to protect Ma's wife and son. Su's guillotine is destroyed when Ma uses Luo's against her. Su then enters the cabin and attempts to kill Ma and his family with a knife, but is forced to retreat after other farmers in the village attack him. The written version of the script is very different. Instead, after Su throws his guillotine at Ma's house, both Ma and Luo avoid being beheaded. Luo quickly throws his own guillotine as Su responds at the same time. As a result, both Su and Luo decapitate each other. Just before dying, Su shouts Luo Peng, while blood flows from the stump where his head was. As nervous reactions in the arms pull at the chains, the guillotines return to their lifeless owners, and their heads roll away. During the filming of The Flying Guillotine in 1974, Chen Kuan Tai was surprised to win the Most Popular Male Star award by the Taipei Press Association at the 20th Asian Film Award ceremony. He had also won a Youth Male Award from the Chamber of Commerce. At the time, journalists were asking Chen about his popularity outside of Hong Kong in other Asian territories. He expressed interest in Taiwan and elsewhere, mentioning that he had spoken to filmmakers in Thailand and Indonesia about film production methods and markets in those areas. He said, "I feel safer than Big Brother Cheng." This was a humorous aside from the character he played in the recently completed triad drama, The Tea House, directed by K. Chi-hung. At the time, Chen was separated from his wife and had already caught the attention of Miss Hong Kong finalist Kai Zhen. This confirmation of his popularity and growing star status, along with his growing curiosity about being in complete control of his career, was the first sign that Chen had ambitious, if disastrous, plans that would play a crucial role in his career path in the final months of 1976. In December 1974, versatile filmmaker Ho Menghua moved from imperial death squads to modern curses with the mainstream film Black Magic, 1975, set in Malaysia. Shortly after, he followed up with another folk curse film also set in Malaysia, The Oily Maniac, 1976. In about 8 months, Ho would return to plots centered around head-killing weapons, although this new adventure would place the action firmly within the wuxia universe. In February 1975, The Flying Guillotine premiered in Hong Kong to perform well at the box office. Imitations soon appeared, some of which came from Shaw Studio itself. One of these imitations had the working title of The Guillotine, Chinese title, Flying Dragon Blade. Ho Menghua, who began production in August 1975, led the cloning of his own successful creation. Being an economical and efficient director, much admired by the Shaws, Ho did not take even a year to film his next project about decapitating contraptions. However, he faced new challenges when filming this new weapon, which would eventually become the Dragon Missile, 1976.
It's difficult to highlight the terrifying impact of the flying dragon weapon in this film without modern special effects. If the public experiences fear when seeing this peculiar weapon, they will believe that what they are seeing is real.
Feilongjian, The Dragon Missile, 1976.
Inspired by the boomerang, a weapon often associated with Australia, although it was recently discovered to be over 2,000 years old in Egypt, this new decapitating blade was touted as a superior version of the flying guillotine. It was easier to transport and did not depend on a chain. The guillotine, historical weapon enriched with Chinese ingenuity and extensive creative license, was presented as director Ho's breakthrough in the action film genre, as he mentioned when making his Qing Dynasty dramatic thriller. However, this time, the realism of the Flying Guillotine was replaced by a typical wuxia scenario, where the participants possessed a variety of special weapons and superhuman abilities. In addition to Lo Lia's lead role as the Dragon Missile Master, the cast included a mix of seasoned professionals, new faces in the Shaw Company, and emerging talent. Tony Lu Young began his career at the other major Hong Kong studio of the time, Golden Harvest, and was a close childhood friend of Bruce Lee. Lu's friendship with Lee served as a promotional tool, attracting more attention than the film in which Lu acted. At the time, Shaw Studio was also filming a biopic of Bruce Lee, starring and co-produced by his lover, Betty Ting Pei. Although Lu and Lee grew up together, they separated when Bruce left for the United States in 1959. Years later, Lu Young was filming a movie in Thailand and, to his surprise, Bruce Lee was there too. They both had a lot to catch up on, and Lee made sure to find a role for Lu in his films. If there was one actor who was always busy, it was Lo Lee. He had been in and out of Shaw Studio for a while, but landed the lead role in Ho Meng Hua's Dragon Missile, 1976, and a supporting role in Chin Kang's troubled Flying Guillotine 2, when he was originally the sole director. Lo Lee commented this during a break on the set of Dragon Missile.
I was trained by Shaw Brothers. I have worked with the company for many years, and only in the last few years have I asked the boss to allow me to make films elsewhere. He agreed. Boss Shaw has been very kind to me.
At this point in his career, Lo Lee was already settled in life. He accepted both big and small roles, whether hero or villain. He was passionate about making money and making movies, whether in Hong Kong, Taiwan or Thailand. His role as Sima Jun in Dragon Missile was just another job for him, referencing the hot summers and cool winters during the 4 months of filming. The film got an additional publicity boost when the president of Kodak and his wife visited Shaw Studio on September 19, 1975. Among the film sets they toured were the Imperial Palace Pavilion, built for Li Hanxiang's 2 epics about the Dowager Empress, a decoration in the patio, and an indoor set where Dragon Missile was being filmed. Lo Lee chatted with them about filmmaking during a break in filming. Aside from expanding Lu Young's character, there weren't many changes or cuts in the film. One deleted sequence involved the attractive Terry Lu, known for Shaw Brothers, The Bamboo House of Dolls, and The Super Inframan, who attempted to impress Lu Young with her fishing skills, using her deadly needles to catch them. Oh no! While the Shaw Brothers were replicating their own hit film, other people were working for independent companies, creating their own copies. One of them was a former Shaw superstar who harbored deep disdain for his former employer. This man, with a tumultuous and sometimes violent lifestyle, had a story worthy of being brought to the big screen. Jimmy Wong Yu, known for not letting a good opportunity pass by, decided to jump on the guillotine bandwagon and write and direct his own version. That film is the cult favorite, One-Armed Boxer vs. The Flying Guillotine, 1976, also known as One-Armed Boxer 2, and Master of the Flying Guillotine. A long-running rivalry between Big Boss Run Shaw and Jimmy Wong Yu's furious fists began in 1970 and erupted when the impulsive actor broke his contract to make films elsewhere, resulting in subsequent lawsuits.
独臂拳王大破解弟子 Master of the Flying Guillotine, 1976.
One-Armed Boxer vs. The Flying Guillotine, 1976, was Wang's most successful film featuring a one-armed boxer. Produced by the Taiwan-based First Films Company under the direction of President Huang Zhou-han, this company stood out as one of the most competitive independent production facilities from the late 1960s to the early 1980s. Many independent companies managed to produce only one film, while others managed to make several before going out of business. Competing with major producers such as Shaw and Golden Harvest was a minor challenge compared to the major market changes in other Asian territories that affected the entire industry in the mid-1970s.
Oh my God!
It's probably no coincidence that both The Dragon Missile and Wang Yu's One-Armed Boxer vs. The Flying Guillotine mashup were released on the same day, April 24, 1976. Both were formula films, but The Dragon Missile, despite looking more expensive, featuring a unique weapon, and being little more than glossy exploitation, performed poorly at the box office. Meanwhile, Wang Yu's ridiculously cheap and over-the-top action film, with its compact, Kippa-like guillotine, was a hit and eventually became a cult sensation. Incidentally, Wang was involved in a deadly altercation the night before the premiere of his film. Jimmy Wang Yu is known for several titles in his career. In the United States, most often when Wang's name is mentioned, fans associate the movie Master of the Flying Guillotine, 1976, with the superstar. As for Chen Kuan Tai, both he and Wang had similar trajectories in their careers with Shaw Brothers, however, Chen's fate was different.
I've been warned that making Flying Guillotine 2 might not be a smart decision for my career, as Ho Menghuo's original version is hard to beat. However, I am willing to try because I enjoy facing challenges, so I will dare to film a sequel.
Chen Kong, father of famed action choreographer and director Ching Shu-tung, would probably regret trying to make a sequel to Ho's original classic. Considering the chaos that surrounded production, it's surprising that the film was ever completed. In the past, Shaw Brothers had numerous productions where they changed actors or directors for various reasons. For example, Call to Arms, 1973, started from scratch after losing its lead actor, Chang Yi, and The Devil's Mirror, 1972, had 6 actresses before rebooting with a new cast and director. Flying Guillotine 2, on the other hand, was scrapped and rebooted an unprecedented 3 times. With Wang Yu keeping his personal feud with Run Run Shaw alive through an ongoing series of low-cost clones featuring one-armed men, gangsters, and guillotines, the movie mogul producing a legitimate sequel to one of his studio's biggest hits made sure they were as determined to complete it as they were to sue him for breach of contract. After finishing his segment in the groundbreaking anthology film, The Criminals, 1976, Chen Kong was eager to return to filming a feature film. Chen Kong, an award-winning filmmaker, lived and breathed cinema. He was one of Hong Kong's most respected and revered directors, as well as one of the industry's most enthusiastic. Cheng was nicknamed the Slow Director. At the time, the director was nearing completion of his epic crime film, The Gambler's King, 1976, having taken 3 years from conception to completion. The film would not be released until November 1976. This desire for efficiency, based on a bet, may have been decisive in Chen Kang's decision to tackle a film that seemed more suitable for any director other than him. Cheng, a perfectionist, rarely used scripts he hadn't written himself. This time, he decided to film whatever the company provided, so Ni Kwang sent him what eventually became Flying Guillotine 2. Although he claimed to be willing to direct any task assigned by the studio, director Cheng didn't like the script, saying it deviated too much from Ho's film. Therefore, he revised it to his specifications. For example, the "Loyalty of Fools" from the original was repeated once again, but this time, it's Shiso's character who, like Chen Kuan Tai's before her, comes to question the emperor's orders. Among other alterations, Cheng put more emphasis on the emperor, who now fights with Ku Feng's kung fu, unlike the non-fighting emperor played by Chang Yang in the previous film, and changed Shisu's motivations to one of revenge. He had also intended to change the title of Flying Guillotine 2 to something like Murder of Young Cheng, stating that the weapons were secondary to him and that human performances were what mattered most. Director Cheng also increased the number of assassination attempts on the emperor from 1 to 3. He even wrote Shisu's character as a film version of Lu Xinyang from the legend, the vengeful daughter who plotted the emperor's death for killing her family. In the end, the Chinese title did not mention the infamous decapitator, translating to Murder of the Qing Dynasty, but the English title, Flying Guillotine Part 2, was there to give a hint to the English-speaking audience. When asked about his resistance to keeping the guillotine in the title, Cheng responded,
There will be a subtitle in the name, but the main plot of our movie focuses on killing Emperor Yongcheng. The guillotine is just a weapon. This show will offer one thrill after another. I'm sure the audience will love it, and it should be a purely commercial film. I have also modified the original script to include a group of heroes who will be responsible for killing Yongcheng.
Filming on the film, tentatively titled The Improved Guillotine, began on December 9, 1975. Chen Kuan Tai, who already had a full schedule of projects, was again cast as Ma Teng. However, his character was no longer the only protagonist of the film. He shared the screen with Shisu, who has more screen time in the final version, and several other actors playing Qiang Nan's swordsman, including familiar faces like Wang Chung and Fan Mei Sheng. Ironically, as Cheng Kong attempted to speed up the process of getting rid of his nickname of the slow director, everything that could go wrong, did go wrong, preventing him from making any significant progress on the only sequel to which his name was credited. With one calamity after another, problems arose a few weeks after filming began and only escalated from there. Mysteriously, lead actress Lu Wuqi disappeared from the set about a month after filming began in February 1976. The crew waited a while for her to arrive. When he didn't, they decided to film other scenes that didn't require his presence, thinking he would appear at some point. However, he never did. Rumors began to circulate that he had returned home to Taiwan, while others claimed he could be in Paris or Brazil, and some said it was hidden somewhere in Hong Kong. During a break in filming King Gambler, in October 1975, Lu Wuqi had traveled to Taiwan on vacation and kept in touch with director Cheng. The sudden disappearance of the actress, without warning or news of her whereabouts, was alarming and extremely disturbing to Cheng Kong, as she had been his discovery. As weeks went by, there was still no news of Lu Wuqi. With the film half finished, the options were to scrap it or hire a new actor. This was in March 1976. One-Armed Boxer vs. The Flying Guillotine by Wang Yu was set to premiere the following month in April, on the same day as Shaw's Dragon Missile, a clone of Flying Guillotine. The average cost of a Hong Kong film was $300,000. Shaw's estimated losses amounted to $200,000. The film was significant enough for the company to start over. After all, scrapping it could seem like a loss of prestige. Cheng Kong quickly found a replacement for Lu Wuqi in Xiao Yao, an actress from Li Han Xiang's prestigious productions. She had a gap in her schedule between the filming of Sun Chung's surprisingly cheap Cobra Girl, 1977. Without time to read the script, she agreed to take on the role of Ma's wife, Yulan, for the time being. In October 1976, Chen Kuan Tai, enticed by much more lucrative offers from Taiwanese film producers to act in or direct films, reneged on his contract and left Movietown, leaving Flying Guillotine 2 and 2 Generations of Masters, later retitled in English Executioners from Shaolin, unfinished. The headstrong actor immediately left for Taiwan, where he began directing or starring in 5 films. Like Jimmy Wang Yu before him, Chen faced lawsuits soon after. The uproar around the case even drew comparisons to Wang Yu's lawsuit by the media. Cheng Kong continued filming what he could on Flying Guillotine 2, despite being distracted by his desire to finish King Gambler, a film he had worked hard on for 3 years and which cost between 5 and 6 million Hong Kong dollars. So he filmed Flying Guillotine 2 during the day and worked on dubbing his gambling epic at night. Ironically, at that time it was reported that Chen Kuan was filming Flying Guillotine 2 with an unusual speed for him. Unfortunately, it was now without its main star and, soon after, Xiao Yao. She had shown great promise in Li Hanxiang's big-budget epics, The Empress Dowager, 1975, and The Last Tempest, 1976. However, for reasons unknown at the time, she left the film and the industry, disappearing as Lu Wuqi had done. Unfortunately, director Chen Kuan was unable to finish his first commercial project. His contract required him to direct 4 films a year, something he had not accomplished since 1972. With all the problems the slow director faced in completing Flying Guillotine 2, he decided not to continue and abandoned the project with only a third of the film finished. Chen left Shaw Studio to try his luck on the independent circuit. In the past, Run Shaw had cancelled movies with far fewer problems than Flying Guillotine 2. This was the only time in their history that they filmed a movie 3 times to complete it. Now it would have a new director, a new lead actor and a new actress. Since Dragon Missile, 1976, was not a great success at the Hong Kong box office, grossing less than half of what Ho's original film and Wang Yu's poor imitation did, hopes were high that this official sequel would achieve the success that its previous production failed to achieve. When Hua Shan took over in January 1977, he largely followed the script as written. His style, however, was very different from Chen Kang's. Hua opted for a stripped-down approach with relentless kinetic energy, while Chen was more meticulous in all aspects of production. Had Chen remained the sole director, the film probably would have been close to 2 hours long, like the original, rather than the fast pace of Hua's entertaining 90-minute chaos. Several scenes featuring the Qiang Nan warriors were deleted or res-hot. One of these repetitions is found at the end, when the swordsmen swear to kill young Cheng. In Hua Shan's images, Shi Su is wearing her silk outfit with the headdress, while in Chen Kang's images, she is wearing a completely different outfit. Additionally, the warriors bring their swords together in the foreground instead of standing apart in a long shot raising their swords in the air as in Hua's images. The ever-busy Ti Lung stepped into the role of Ma Tang, which was left vacant by Chen Kuan Tai. The cheerful actress and former Miss Taiwan beauty pageant winner, Chen Suchia, took on the role of Ma's wife, Yu Lan, first vacated by Lu Wuqi and then by Xiao Yao, who left the industry entirely. Chen Suchia and Xiao Yao were dormitory neighbors and were often seen and photographed together. However, while Lu Wuqi disappeared without a trace, never to be seen again, Xiao Yao resurfaced several months after her own disappearance, although she also expressed a possible desire to leave the film world in October 1976. The dark cloud that hung over Flying Guillotine 2 persisted even after principal photography was finally completed in June 1977. Nancy Yen, a talented martial artist, decided upon returning to Hong Kong from a vacation in Taiwan that she would no longer appear in Shaw Productions after August 1977, citing dissatisfaction with the roles she was being offered. Her role in Flying Guillotine 2 was further condensed when Hua Shan came on board to save the film, a role that was much smaller than the one she had in Dragon Missile. Before Chen Kuan Tai left the set of FG2, Yen seemed somewhat excited about her next project, a modern action movie called Women Detectives, later known as The Deadly Angels, 1977, one of the Shaw brothers' biggest box office hits.
轻功大刺杀 Flying Guillotine 2, 1978.
When Flying Guillotine 2 was released in February 1978, it performed poorly compared to the effort and amount of money invested in its production. With so many problems, it's surprising that the film turned out as entertaining as it did, even with the abrupt edits that evidenced the rushed filming. If Chen Kuan Tai had stayed and not faced all the problems he had, the film would have been very different in terms of development. The parts directed by Hua Shan, through no fault of his own, have minimal characterization, leaving the film as little more than a series of action sequences strung together, all leading up to an incredibly brutal ending. By the time Hua Shan finished the film, with Chen Kuan Tai credited as co-director, and it was ready for release, other similar films had already been filmed while Flying Guillotine 2 was in production, attempting to capitalize on the weapon's popularity and steal some of the potential box office from the legitimate sequel to the Shaw Brothers' original creation. During the summer months of 1977, 4 independent films were released that used a similar weapon or a complete copy. In March 1977, Chin Sin Company's The Greatest Plot, also known as The Eight Swordsmen in Kiang Nan and Dragon and Tiger Heroes, was released. Director Ulysses O. Young Chun's film was a literal copy of the plot of Flying Guillotine 2. It even featured Lo Li in a similar role and his Shaw co-star Yu Hua playing the role of Emperor Yang Cheng. Although it was quite lavish in production, the guillotine-style weapon shown here looked like a metal hat. Also released in 1977 was Shaolin Kung Fu Mystagogue, a film full of action and booby traps, in which Chang Yi threatened the cast with his Bloody Birds, a 3-pronged weapon with rotating blades that functioned similarly to Dragon Missile, 1976. The weapon appears prominently on the poster, reminiscent of the flying guillotine popularized in the original Shaw Brothers production. Then there was Success Film Company's Fatal Flying Guillotines, 1977, directed by Raymond Liu. This film combined the court intrigue and steel umbrella of Shaw's film with the maddened, gray-haired monk of Wang Yu's cult favorite, played here by the muscular, chiseled feature Chen Sing. The main villain carried 2 guillotines, which looked like giant metal thimbles with motorized blades. The plot is somewhat unique, and only the title weapons are derivative. Although these weapons looked more realistic than Wang Yu's interpretation, none of them came close to the design of the original creation, which actually looked like it could work. While Flying Guillotine 2 struggled to completion, Wang Yu returned to the fray with The Deadly Silver Spear, 1977, directed by Sung Ting Mei for the Fortuna Film Company, the same company that financed his disappointing One-Armed Swordsman Against 9 Killers, 1976. Produced at the height of guillotine mania, this is a colorful and extravagant wuxia film featuring a spinning top-style head remover called the Death Ring. This particular imitation of the guillotine takes center stage when the film switches plots midway through. The Death Ring is featured prominently on the poster as a major selling point, as it more closely resembles the flying guillotine than the Death Ring shown in the film. With so many guillotine movies competing for the box office, audiences were probably tired of them. Flying Guillotine 2 must have made money in other Asian territories, not counting international sales, because, incredibly, the Shaw Brothers decided to tackle the issue one last time, with a noticeably cheaper and bittersweet ending to the saga, directed again by the man who started it all. What? In June 1977, filming began on The Bloody Hibiscus, later known internationally as The Vengeful Beauty. Promoted as another installment in the Blood Dripper series, it represented a significant change in style and narrative from Ho's original and the sequel co-directed by Hua Shan and Chen Kuan, which was completed that same month. One notable difference was the inclusion of a female lead, played by one of Hong Kong's biggest stars, Chen Ping. Ho Menghua's rape revenge film, Kiss of Death, 1973, had made her an overnight sensation 4 years earlier. She was the queen of Hong Kong exploitation cinema, however, by the time she landed the role of the titular feisty flower, she had grown tired of playing sexy roles regardless of gender.
残暴不仁的杀人凶器，
杀人凶器，100步之内去人受体，收发自如。杀不了龙秋燕，不要回来见我。来呀，举他脑袋！
我谢芙蓉要用血弟子鲜血来灌溉，现在我要你们的血！
我一定要亲手杀死这个妖怪，和秋燕过太平。
叶芙蓉。
Released in Hong Kong in March 1978, it was not a great success there. However, Shaw's newspapers reported that the film was doing well, probably in other Asian territories such as Malaysia, Singapore and Taiwan. This film ended the 3-year theatrical fascination with the Flying Guillotine. The weapon made an appearance in the wild Indonesian fantasy film, The Devil's Sword, 1983, and again in Johnny 2's action-packed sci-fi martial arts film, The Heroic Trio, 1993. Produced and designed by Ching Shu-tung, the son of Chen Kong, Anthony Wong plays an almost indestructible assassin who wields a flying guillotine similar to the 1975 original design. There was also a highly anticipated remake of the Shaw Brothers film, first announced in 2009 as The Flying Guillotines, with Dante Lam as the director. This project encountered numerous issues. Initial artwork resembled the 1975 original, but changes were made over time. Reportedly, another film involving Lam, The Viral Factor, didn't get the green light, leading to his departure and Teddy Chen taking over as director. Shortly before filming began, Teddy Chen had a dispute with producer Peter Chan and was replaced by Andrew Lau. The film, eventually titled The Guillotines, was scheduled for release in December 2012. This big-budget, highly disappointing production resembled Dragon Missile more than the Flying Guillotine. Inexplicably, the main weapon was discarded 15 minutes into the movie and never appeared again. Despite this, the Golden Age guillotine films remained popular in cinemas and TV shows abroad for decades and have recently found new and old audiences on DVD and Blu-ray worldwide. The mystery of this weapon remains so intriguing that it even featured in a 2011 episode of Mythbusters. With a special focus on Ho Menghua's trend-setting film, these movies are still fondly remembered, and even feared, to this day. If you are still here, and you haven't fallen asleep, don't forget to leave your like and comments. See you in the next video.